keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage, and I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares, nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario, my stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away, asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's Ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursue.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio, once again with your host Nick Burnaby here on UCY.tv. Thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you check out our website, theantimedia.org, for the latest anti-establishment news and information, and also music, which is what we're starting to work on, and it's going pretty well. The latest song we posted was Brother Ali, Morning in America, right? And, we're trying to bring about this total media package now where it's not just news and articles and stuff like that, but also other forms of entertainment and community and culture that really can tie this.
A lifestyle for the revolution.
Exactly, and music with a message that can tie this whole thing together, because it's much larger than just posting news, and news is so impersonal. And the more I get into this stuff, and especially after hanging out with Derek Bros down in Houston, realizing exactly, how much other angles go into this stuff, and we got to tie all this stuff together. Now I'm also joined here in the studio by a couple of special guests. Joined by SM Gibson.
How you doing? Doing good, man.
Joined by Diedrich Young. How you doing, man?
How you doing?
And also joined by Eric P.
Hello.
And then, of course, our co-host DB Swayze. How you doing, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Just getting geared up to hear about what's going on in Ferguson.
DB, how you doing?
Doing good, SM. How you doing?
Doing good, man.
So yeah, we got some news to cover tonight. Other than the stuff that I was just talking about, but let's first jump into this story that SM just posted here about Israel. Apparently, or maybe it's not about Israel, we don't know for sure yet, but 5 nuclear engineers were just found dead in Syria. One of these engineers was Iranian, but the who was it?
4 Syrian, 1 Iranian. Nuclear engineers were killed.
And Hezbollah is coming out and saying, yeah, it was the Israelis.
They're
right?
blaming Israel. And similar situations happened back in January and in May, and it did come out that it was Israel intelligence operations that killed the scientists the first 2 times in January and May, and so no one's taking credit for this yet. If it's usually a terrorist organization, then the terrorist organization will come out and say we did this. Israel has never been prone to take credit for anything they do, because the IDF sits there and says that they actually came out this week hilariously and said that we're sending over Ebola vaccines into Gaza, so look at us, we care, we're great people. So they're more on the propaganda side of things. So when they do something like this, they're not going to take credit for it. And Hezbollah is already blaming them for the assassination, basically, of 5 nuclear scientists, 4 Syrian and 1 Iranian.
So yeah, this is part of this covert war that's been going on that we're seeing, and we've been talking about this for a while. This whole thing with Syria, and it's turning in now. If you look at what's been going on all week with Putin and China and all these guys over there, Obama was there, and they were all dressed up like they were in Star Trek and all that stuff, which is what actually made headline news.
And ironically, they want no one to live free or be prosperous.
Yeah. So, if you look at what's going on, it's kind of developing into a Cold War situation. Unfortunately, it's kind of growing into that, and we all know how the Cold War was. It was just a massive military buildup. And if you look at what's going on in Syria with Israel, Iran is tied into Syria. Syria is tied into Russia. Russia is now becoming more and more tied in with China. What we're seeing now is a polarization of the world. And there's a huge, massive superpower on one side, if you talk about China combined with Russian technology. And then you got the fading superpowers on the West. The U.S., Europe, we're all kind of in this stale economic situation, and we're having fading influence. Look at the BRICS nations, right? You got the BRICS popping up, which is basically an anti-dollar alliance. They're getting tired of the U.S. hegemony over the financial system and the economic system, and the resource hegemony.
Well, even ISIS is ready to go to the gold standard, aren't they?
Yeah. Did you see that, DB?
Oh, man. That's just some crazy stuff, and I'm sure it's not so far away. And really, the ace in the hole is going to be India. A lot of people don't know this, but they're going to overtake China pretty much for population within the next 30 years. So they're really they're the big elephant in the room. Are they going to side to the west or the east?
And so far, India has been relatively peaceful. They do have their occasional spat with Pakistan, just like China has their occasional spat with their bordering areas and the autonomous territories, like the Tibetan areas and Hong Kong and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, India is definitely a rising player, as well as Brazil and all these BRICS nations. And they're already, if you look at the BRICS combined, they're already dwarfed the U.S. economic power, and soon they'll be dwarfing both us and Europe. And China itself is now, if you look at a certain way of measuring economic power, China recently surpassed U.S. economic power by a certain standard. So, we're looking at a world right now where the old superpowers are grasping at straws and they're trying to cling to life. And unfortunately, even though all these policies that they're upholding and carrying out don't really help us out any, these guys are really worried that they're going to lose their dominance and they're going to lose their billions and trillions and all that stuff that they do with their hegemony and all that. So we're in for a turbulent time if we don't, as the American people, we need to get this stuff under control. Otherwise, we're not going to just see a Cold War Part 2. We're going to see World War III. And that's the end game situation that we all want to avoid, because World War III isn't what it was. It's not World War II. It's like what Einstein said. I don't know what World War III is going to be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones, because we're going to wipe everybody out, basically. And that's kind of what the overall issue that we face here at the Anti-Media. I know it's a huge problem, but I mean, we need to prevent World War III, man, because World War III means an end game for almost everybody. And this is exactly where we're pushing the whole situation right now. I don't think Russia wants to move in that direction, but we are cornering this bear. And if we don't, as Americans, get a grip on our own government, man, this is what we're going to be faced with. We're going to be faced with the Russian bear that's been cornered, and it's going to only have one way to move, which is outward.
Right. And it's a tricky situation, because how do you fight Russia and not bring in China? They think we can pull out of this economic mess and avoid the Great Depression 2.0 if we fight Russia and have World War III light or World War III diet, non-nuclear. That's not going to happen. It's insanity. They don't care if there's blowback, and they really anticipate the U.S. being hit hard. That's why they have so many stupid dumbs built.
Well, speaking of economic differences, I know we spoke about it the other night, and the economic imbalance right now, which is in favor of the rich, like 85 people to the 90% United States. The last time that had happened was 1929. And, what happened then? So it's exactly what you just described. We are definitely on the doorstep of the economy collapsing. And the only, nobody wants to address the Federal Reserve. Nobody wants to address what's actually going on. We have access to Bitcoin, but that hasn't spread as wide yet as it should.
But we're working on that. We're working on it. We're trying to spread it, and that's what we're trying to do here. Like from Birmingham, is like, get with you guys and keep the word going out about this new technology that's here, man, and that can separate us from like all of this other crap like from the Federal Reserve. So we just want to like push the word out and keep it going and flourishing. Like, we have my buddy Eric P. in tonight to discuss more things about this and, give his input on the whole situation about the cryptocurrency that's emerging and how it can, like, affect us and help us all out in this movement that we're working out.
So you bring up a great point there about this whole alternative currency, and this is a huge step in the process because, as we were mentioning, we got a financial hegemony that isn't going to die easily. It's not going to give up. It's, no one that's holding a great amount of wealth and power gives it up easy. They always go down with a fight. They're not just, oh yeah, you guys beat us, okay, go ahead and take over. No, that's not what's going to happen. We're going to have to beat these guys with strong ideas and smart people, right? So
what's ironic, though, is in the past, these people with money always had to control the population. With the advancements of technology, they can buy the resources and the weaponry that they don't need the population. They can have drones. They can have an extensive amount of weapons that every person on the planet could be against them, and they could still defeat them because of their financial, where they're at.
Yeah, man. So when it comes down to preventing this World War III stuff, I think cryptocurrencies, alternative currencies can play a big role. If you want to talk about, the repercussions of Bitcoin on the larger scale, how is it going to affect the monetary system, and how we can use it positively to create, a way to undermine this whole petrodollar system, this whole this financial hegemony that's going on right now.
How I see it right now, it's going to be kind of tough because how I see the things going is, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. There's no regulation in Bitcoin. All right, so it's a good thing that there's no regulation because it's like the Wild West right now. So we're trying to figure out all the problems with the economic system that we're in now. So. But what I see, what could potentially happen is if people don't get involved, if people don't get involved in the with owning some of these Bitcoins, it's just going to be the same thing over again, And Bitcoin is our escape from the current system. But if people don't actually get involved, it's just going to be the current system 2.0.
Do you feel like they could centralize Bitcoin and could basically turn it into exactly what we have?
Definitely.
Yes, I agree.
Because the power, where's the Bitcoins coming from? They're coming from the miners. And what are we seeing? We're starting to see a centralization of the miners.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to escape, and ironically, it's going right back to it.
Right. You've got
Andrew Jackson fought this. That's how far back this goes as far as centralization of banks.
Right. You've got, where are all the chips coming from? The chips are coming from China. So if they just stay there, you've got potentially cheap power in China. You've got cheap chips in China. eventually, they could have control of everything, and
so it's the same power in different hands.
Yeah, but then also, didn't they make like certain regulations in China?
Yeah, well, the Chinese, they have a different idea about Bitcoin than we do. Over here, we're trying to get people to get some for themselves. We're trying to get merchants to accept Bitcoin for their products. China is different. They don't buy stuff with Bitcoin. They buy Bitcoin to hold it. They buy Bitcoin to sell it. They buy Bitcoin to...
So they're basically like...
They're
in the business of the stock market.
Purely a financial speculation instrument.
So, I mean, I guess the key is that no matter what currency we end up using, and, currency, a lot of people are like, we can't have money, and, money is the enemy and stuff, but, when it comes down to it, almost every single civilization that's ever existed, whether we're talking about Native American or ancient Chinese, anything, they all have some form of currency, right? Whether it's beads or whatever, stones, gold, fiat currency, which is what we have now. Currency facilitates, seashells. Currency facilitates trade, right? Trade is how we improve the quality of life for people, right? And that's how you make economic progress and economic activity.
Right. All these instruments are really a substitution for what? Barter, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that we can do with these, with these digital currencies, is, forget about a currency. Forget about a singular currency. I mean, what do you need? You need food, shelter, and access to.
It's all a means to an end, basically.
Right. So with these computers, in digital currency, why do we need to have one currency? Why don't we invest our time into what we want? And that's another thing that Bitcoin can bring.
Now, do you feel like there is value to all the various multitude of different cryptocurrencies out there, whether it be Dogecoin, whether it be Starcoin, whether it be Bitcoin, whatever it is?
Sexcoin.
There you go.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, do it.
Potcoin.
Mm-hmm. See, I see all these as clones of each other at this point.
Are they all under the umbrella of Bitcoin, or are they all their own thing?
Both. They're all basically, what we see right now is all basically a clone of Bitcoin. But that's all based on a proof of work system, which means like I can prove that my computer was running at this speed based purely on statistics. But that's how Bitcoin works, and that's a good what do you call it?
Analogy. Comparison, I guess.
Prototype. All right. So what we can see, just for example, your insurance. We've seen this now with Progressive. They've got the little black box basically that you plug into your car, and it monitors your driving habits. Well, there can be that's making you money, right? Okay, so we can flip that, and we can have a piece of currency that actually gives you money for letting you monitor how I drive, right? And the closer I am to ideal, that's how much currency I crank out. So, you see applications like this. There's a lot more ways of doing this. You can have basically a proof of sweat. You've got a pedometer attached to your ankle, and
bro,
you make you make money by exercising, basically, because what do you do by exercising? You're taking the load off the rest of the people, right? You're not a drain on the healthcare system. So it's in everybody's best interest to be able to make money for staying healthy. I'm going off on a rabbit hole, but Bitcoin is not just a currency, I guess, is really my main.
Yeah. It's much larger.
Yeah, it's way bigger than
and so, currency. The whole thing, and why this is so important, and there's so many different options here, but in my opinion, bartering is the most direct form of trade and the most beneficial to both parties. If I know how to fix a car, and you know how to fix a roof, and my roof is leaking and your radiator's leaking, then I say, hey, bro, I fixed your radiator, you fix my roof, and we got a deal. We don't have to exchange currencies. We don't have to lose any money with an exchange rate. We don't have to lose any money through fiat currency, through inflation or taxes or whatever. Barter is the most pure form of trade, right? And like you said, Bitcoin is kind of just a evolved form of bartering, right? But the reason why this is so important, in my opinion, is that all of these wars, all of these conflicts, they're all being based, all the stuff that the U.S. is doing, and all this tension with Russia, it's all based on the petrodollar.
Resource.
And it's all based,
lack of resources.
Yeah, and it's all based on this oil system that we got, which, by the way, is horrible because it's polluting the planet and all that stuff.
They literally they landed on a comet today, and I get 15 miles to the gallon with my car. Give me a break.
We made history today, guys.
And, I got to get gas every 2 days.
So let's go into this comet thing and see where we can go with it. Who wants to talk about that? Because I'm not too familiar with it.
Hey, it's been flying for 10 years. 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago they launched it and it finally landed.
But did it really land, guys? We don't know.
It had somewhat of a rough landing, apparently.
Apparently, the harpoons didn't deploy.
You can hear we pulled it up earlier before we started the radio show, and you can hear it, and it's just basically like some kind of sound.
Yeah, there's music coming off of this comet, man.
Blur. I'll say this: I know when they had a rover land on Mars, Blur started playing. It was the first band ever play on Mars, but. No Song 2 on the Comet today.
Yeah, the Comet is actually playing dubstep.
But what are the repercussions here? Because DB, I know you and me always talk about getting off planet and stuff. Eventually, this planet is going to be done, right? Eventually, the sun's going to burn out, or we're going to run out of resources.
And that's what landing on this comet's all about. It's finding helium-3, man. You need a power source that can make the news.
Hey, you're cutting out there a little bit.
Basically what I was saying was they're going up on these comets specifically to find helium-3. And you can read into that. They expect that a tiny amount would be enough to power a huge starship. So this is what they're doing, man. This is why they have stuff on the moon. This is why they're going out into Europa on Jupiter. They're trying to find this new power source that pretty much will make power for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that, man. And to me, it's like, one interesting fact, and this came out, a month or two ago, maybe a few months ago, about how the water that's on the Earth is older than the Earth itself. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, they found that most of the water that's here on the Earth predates...
A comet hit.
Yeah, it predates the Earth itself, so that means that most of the water that's here on the Earth most likely came from a bunch of comets landing here and bringing the water to the Earth. And
the wrong ones hit Mars.
Yeah, and that tells you a whole other thing, too, because if the water came here after, then there's also a good chance that life also came along afterwards and came flying in here on a comet or something, right?
Possibility.
And intelligent life, just distinctively, us, are not terrestrial. We're missing 2 chromosomes. So, I mean, the proof's in the pudding.
So this could be another thing they're out there looking for on this comet is some kind of basic forms of life and other kinds of... They're probably going to discover, if they actually get to really dig around on this comet, they're probably going to discover a few new elements up there, right? Because we still discover new elements here. We still, every few years we discover a new element. So there's probably going to be some new stuff up there. I would not be surprised if they found life of some sort. Now, if they do find some controversial things, are they going to tell us about it? Well, that's another story. Who knows? But I think this is big to be able to fly that far out, 300 million miles out, and to actually be able to have the technology to land something on that and to be able to communicate with us. I saw a lot of people talking online about how this is the first step in getting off planet eventually, because that's an inevitably one day, whether the sun burns out or whether we destroy the planet, whether if we don't prevent World War III, whatever it is, one day we're gonna, human life will have to leave this planet if we want to survive. And by all means, if you look at human instinct, our instinct is to survive, and if we know the planet's going to go, then we're going to get the hell off planet. Now, this could be our first big step off planet. So, I mean, it's hard to say. If anybody wants to call in and talk about this, I don't know too much about this whole comment thing, so I don't want to go too far into it without knowing what I'm really talking about. But if anybody wants to call in and talk about if you know a little bit about this, feel free to call. The number is 718-717-8296.
Okay. Speaking of survival, allow me to kind of hijack the show for a second and change the subject. You have, for the first time in your life, been in Birmingham, Alabama for the past 4 days.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were lucky enough to walk down and go through Kelly Ingram Park. And today we went to the Civil Rights Institute. With everything that's going on in Mexico right now, with everything that's going on in Ferguson right now, your perspective, you're from California, from Southern California, and you've been in Birmingham, Alabama, and you saw kind of a different side of things than you had been, privy to growing up. Can you tell us about that and your experience and what you think about that in relation to Ferguson, Mexico, and just in general?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll just want to talk about what I saw today. And I went down to the Civil Rights Museum in Birmingham, and it was just, I was just blown away by the stuff that I saw down there. And obviously Martin Luther King was one of the big leaders of the movement, but finding out that there were 50 bombs that went off here in Birmingham, blowing up children. I mean, at one time, 4 children got blown up by dynamite by one of these, I don't know what we want to call them, racists. We don't know. They never actually did a legitimate investigation on this stuff. It may have been the cops that were involved in blowing up.
We can just call them terrorists.
They were terrorists.
Well, the irony is they say that ISIS is going to blow us up, and there's been no bombs blown up here, but yet there were 50 bombs blown up in the city that I grew up in.
Yeah, I mean, there are some very, very horrible things that went on in this city, and we're only talking about 50 years ago, 55 years ago.
50 years ago. It was still,
yeah. And
a whole year.
This is, I just was blown away by the amount of hate and the amount of propaganda and the amount of groupthink and the amount of fear, because all of this stuff is based on fear, right? These people were scared of other people just because they look different. The same way that people in the Southwest and Marietta are scared of Mexicans.
We talked about it today. It transitions to today, because I don't necessarily think that every white person in Birmingham in the 50s was racist. It's like today you see people are against immigration. They're told a narrative. They're told a fairy tale. And they're told that this group of people, because of this situation, is going to come in and take your jobs or do this or do that. And it's the fear that's sold to them. It's not the people that are necessarily full of hate. The people that are carrying out the violence are full of hate. But the people that are behind it are the ones that are saying, but they're coming to hurt me, or they're coming to do this. And they believe that because they've been sold something.
Exactly, man. And I'm sitting there in this museum, and I see that these people, these racists were blocking these buses of the Freedom Riders and stuff. And then I'm sitting here looking, 6 months ago, where these racists down in Southern California were blocking these buses full of Hispanic children that were just trying to come up and get some shelter. These are refugees.
Yes.
And by the same token, 50 years ago here in Birmingham, the people were doing this to African Americans.
It was white and black.
And six months ago, they're still doing it to Hispanics.
Right.
I mean, racism is by all means still alive in this country in many places. Now, here in Birmingham, it's a much different situation than in Southern California, where it's mostly people that are being racist against Hispanics and stuff like that. I think here in this city, at least, a lot of the tension between blacks and whites has really eased, and because of the civil rights movement being so prevalent here, people actually confronted it head on, and a lot of it was dealt with. Now, of course, are there still problems? Yes, but it was dealt with. And it tells me right now that if we see these problems, we need to confront them head on, and we need to have a new civil rights movement. The civil rights movement never died. It just needs to be rekindled.
Exactly.
Yeah. We can't have it being hijacked by people like Jesse Jackson and these guys. These guys aren't constructive. These guys are just, I mean, the fact that they're on TV so much tells you that they're just part of their little control apparatus. They're part of of them oppressing us. We need to rekindle this movement, and we need new ideas, but we need to invoke old tactics, the tactics of Martin Luther King and thinkers like that, where we need to practice the ideas of Gandhi. Exactly.
Gandhi, Ralph Abernathy, just peace. And here's the situation. I think no matter the situation that you look at, I think there is a group of people that are racist for being racist. I think everybody else is reacting to fear that they've been sold. But listen, so fair enough. So what they were told in Birmingham is there's this group of people that's going to come in here and hurt you. Look down in Southern California. There's these immigrants coming across the border. They're going to take your jobs. They're going to bring some disease over the border. They're bringing drugs over the border. It's fear.
But we can say it's also ignorance also.
It is ignorance. It is absolute ignorance. But the problem is, you know, don't blame the person that's ignorant, blame the teacher. Who's selling?
You're right.
Who's selling the message of fear? That's the problem. Who's selling this message of fear to people? Who's telling you that these Mexicans coming across the border is going to hurt you? And that's what we're dealing with now. Who's telling you that the protesters in Ferguson, when they get on CNN, are telling you they're about to burn this thing to the ground?
So basically, racism is taught.
Absolutely, it is. But see, I don't think racism is ever as widespread and prevalent as it is. It's taught through fear. All racism is, and whether it's Mexican, whether it's black, whether it's anything, all it is people reacting to fears that have been taught to them. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is it's just a reaction. They're scared of a narrative that's been brought down on them.
Yeah.
And see, whether you're Mike Brown's family and you've seen white people kill your child, you know what? If I was his family, I'd hate white people. But you know what? Fear. It's always fear. It's always a reaction to fear, and that's what it is. We need to stop the fear. And who's teaching the fear? That's where racism comes from. That's the bottom line.
There was a quote today, and I'm having trouble remembering it because I couldn't take any pictures inside the museum. But I think this is relevant to Ferguson because we all saw what those riots did.
Right.
Automatically, it's like, oh, there's just a bunch of thugs out there destroying their own community and stuff. I don't agree with what those people were saying, but that's what's going to be said if that happens.
Right.
Now, if that happens, we are still going to try to counter that narrative, right? But that's the narrative that is going to be played out across every TV stream in the nation, right?
If one window gets broken, they're going to go with that.
Yes, and so then then they forget that, oh, these cops are killing people and harassing people out there in Ferguson, all over the country.
Right.
It's not about that no more. People are smashing windows just because.
That's all. Yeah.
And that's what these corporate idiots are selling. Yes, exactly. They're going to sell us this fear. Oh, they're going to tear down your community too.
There's no division between people. They sell fear to people.
So that's the reason why gun sales are also going up in Missouri also, right?
Yeah. Okay. They've got people convinced they're about to burn it to the ground. And you know what? I'm not so sure they're not going to. I pray they don't. I pray the people of Ferguson realize that what you're going through, it's happened before in this country. Look back at Medgar Evers in Mississippi. Look back at Birmingham. Look back at Dr. King. These things have happened. You are not in some bubble that has never happened before. They handled it with peace. And you know what? They came out on the other side of it. You can do the same.
And what we're dealing with here are spin doctors, professional, calculating spin doctors. Fox News, as out of touch as they are, as ridiculous as they are, These are scientifically proven spin doctors, and they're very good at it. Look what they did to the Occupy movement, right?
Right.
Look what the other media outlets had done to the whole Tea Party movement and all that stuff. These are spin doctors.
The Tea Party movement started with people that supported Ron Paul, and the next thing you know, there's Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann that are taking it over.
Exactly, because of the spin doctors.
Well, you got to say the Tea Party is horrible.
No.
Yeah,
it was definitely in its current state, it's horrible.
It is absolutely, but what I'm saying,
what it started out as was something okay.
Exactly. It
now
started
it's
out
just
as something,
absolutely
and
ridiculous.
It was hijacked into something else. People with money.
Now,
it was horrible.
Before we go to our caller here, I just want to bring one thing up. After going to this museum today, and keep in mind, I was choking back tears for an hour while I was there, watching this hatred and watching what was going on, and listening to Dr. King's speeches and stuff. But what Dr. King realized was that you can beat these spin doctors at their own game. And you beat them with love. You beat them with peace. And I truly believe, deep down, all this expectation of riots and all this crap, that's all based on racism. They're just saying, people are expecting
fear.
that.
Let's start calling things for what they are. It's based on fear.
Yes. So here's what I'm hopeful of. After seeing the tactics of Martin Luther King, and realizing how they were able to beat the spin doctors, they were able to beat the fear, they were able to win the hearts and the minds by loving people, by absorbing all this hate, by watching their children being attacked by dogs, blown up in churches, and absorbing that.
Yeah, and
they were able to overcome.
Yeah,
and this is what I'm hopeful in Ferguson. They've had 3 months now of training, 3 months of practice. They've been protesting every single day out there for 3 months peacefully. I'm hopeful that we are about to see the rekindling of the civil rights movement, and it's going to happen in the next 2 weeks.
Through peace. And here's what a tangled web we weave when we start talking about these things, and we're here, and we've gone down and walked through Kellingham Park. We saw where the dogs were biting at children. We saw where the hoses mowed people down. And you know what? Today, it was released that the FBI was threatening Dr. King, wanting him to kill himself.
The FBI was sending him letters trying to convince him.
The unredacted version was released today.
And you know what? They were basically, looking at that letter, they were basically saying, hey, either you kill yourself or we're going to help you do it.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what they did.
That's what they did.
Now, here's the thing. We're in a different situation now. Back then, they didn't have all this technology. They didn't have all this communication and all this information. They didn't have open source. They didn't have Twitter. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have Instagram, all this stuff.
They had their community, though.
We're in a different age, man.
Right.
We're in a different age where this thing can go global. It may not even just be in Ferguson. It may not just be in the U.S. It may go global. Yes. And we're seeing it happen in all these countries.
It's happening now. It's happening with us. It's happening like we uniting all over.
Okay? Absolutely. See, and that's the thing, though, and here's the thing in the 60s. It's like things were sold to people for certain propaganda. Lyndon Johnson didn't necessarily believe in the Civil Rights Bill. He did it because it was politically advantageous for him. What was important was the community and the people. Was Dr. King a perfect man? No, he was not. But what he did was the most important thing that could have ever been? Yes, absolutely. He was peaceful. He believed in what he preached. And that's what the people, especially the people of Mexico and especially the people of Ferguson, need to remember today. People have been there before you. You're not alone in your shoes. You know, Brother Malcolm X, he dealt with things a little differently. And you know what? He kind of came around to the peaceful side of things, and how did that get dealt with? Louis Farrakhan will tell you today on camera that they fucking blew him away. So what I'm saying is peace, 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 peace.
Peace,
Be
Ferguson.
Peaceful.
Free Ferguson.
Free Ferguson. Free Birmingham. Free everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I think we can all agree that the only thing that the government's really good at is enacting violence to oppress a minority that a slight majority is against. So don't give them the opportunity to do what they do best. Lock them up with peace.
Thank you. Exactly.
So now we're all speculating here, right? Because the verdict hasn't come down.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of rumors. There's a bunch of leaks supposedly that are saying Darren Wilson's going to get off. That's all still speculation. I'm 90% sure that he's going to get let off, but still, that's speculation. But what we do know that is happening for sure right now is 43 students in Mexico have got disappeared, and they're most likely. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're probably dead. And things are absolutely popping off in Mexico.
When they found the body.
Now, things have been popping off in Mexico for years, man. The Mexican government
what happened?
Is probably the most corrupt government, at least in the Western Hemisphere, right? The Mexican government has been killing people. The cartels have been killing people. The cartels basically run the government. We're talking about a horrible, horrible situation going on over there. And Manny, if you're still on the line, I figured we can go to you on this if you want to talk about this. But in the city of Acapulco, they've now taken the airport. The protesters,
man,
and these guys aren't messing around. I mean, these guys are taking back this country. You know, it's got to this point.
Yeah, Manny, you were saying something about that the other day, right?
Yes, I was actually. Basically, what's happening right now, we're even arresting cops. They have been thrown to the ground and taken in, not being hurt or anything, just being treated the same way that we've been treated and stuff like that. And it's a tough situation. It's very emotional for me because as an activist, it's closer to home. It's more than just being an activist for other places where I've been. This is more close to home. And they're blocking the entrance. And it's not good for us about that. And we have actually going to be having them. I hope Nick gets back. We have a big thing protesting down by the border on Monday, and I'm going to go down there from LA to San Diego because we're actually going to the Mexican consulate and asking and basically giving them a letter. Because they get to send all the paperwork to Mexico. To actually, for the first time, I see people ask for a president of Mexico to resign, and we're really asking the president to resign. And so it's just we're tired of the PRI, and it's just these people need to be accountable to these parents. These mothers need the respect and the dignity to tell them the truth and what happened to their sons and stuff like that. Yeah.
Manny, do you know if any of the protesters? I saw that some of the militia were down there. Are the federales basically like more or less, hey, there's too many people with guns, or is it all completely just peaceful and unarmed people?
No, they're peaceful and stuff like that. They got bats and stuff like that, but they got leaders within the movement. But they're telling the cops, if you want us to back off, you need to back off and let us march. And that's what, I actually sent the video to somebody. I think it was Nick or TV, and that's exactly, the leaders we have to give the police respect to, because I believe in the Martin Luther King way of doing things and stuff like that. The only thing that I kind of sometimes get aggravated is because of the black and brown. We're our worst enemies within our own ranks a lot of times. We need to come together, and be as one, stuff like that. And it's just, I get tired, like this brother said about, Jesse Jackson and stuff like that. We need leaders like Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Vernon Johns. People don't forget, and I want the males to forget the female leaders. They're behind big leagues like Martin Luther King. There's some strong-ass, ladies behind us and stuff like that, and we need to acknowledge her. Just like Cesar Chavez, for instance, behind him was a very strong activist woman, Dolores Huerta, and stuff like that. And, we have that saying, si se puede, and I believe that si se puede, and I think that we're going to be, happy with the result in Mexico because, and I'm emotional right now about it because I want to thank, everybody for supporting us here in the States. I'm sure we're getting support even from Alabama and Ferguson. I know we're getting from Ferguson, probably Alabama. People have been behind us. People in Tijuana appreciate that love that we're getting from around the world because this is a world problem. And it's not just a Mexico and Acapulco problem, stuff like that. So to everybody that's hopefully listening in Spanish, yo sé que sí se puede y gracias por todo el amor, porque yo creo que el amor gana guerras. In translation, I think that love really wins wars and stuff like that, and that's what I liked about Martin Luther King. To this day, it's my favorite speech. Back in 63. I was only 3 years old when he did that speech. And if we can do that again anywhere, it would be great if that. Another thing I'd like to say is that it was kind of sad that we waited to start really protesting until this thing in Ferguson happened. It's been happening before Ferguson in L.A. It's been happening in San Diego. And some of these people that are now helping us, how come they didn't help us when we really needed their help? Now they want publicity, and stuff like that. I'm into this for publicity. I want you to be helping. Well, don't wait for something to happen to you until you be standing up and standing out. Go out there and make a difference for somebody else and stuff like that.
Hey, Manny, that's why we here now. We have to start now. We got your back now. We got to start from now on. We got to have each other back. It ain't about black and brown. It's about what's right. It's about what's better for us all. What's better for humanity, people. So hey. We here. We stand from Birmingham right now, Manny. We got your back. We the same. Hey,
And you know what? Also, that's why Birmingham, I think Birmingham needs to be the symbol of everything that's going on in Mexico. I think Birmingham needs to be the symbol of everything that's going on in Ferguson. It's the symbol of this has already happened. Everything that you're all going through, it's happened in the United States of America. And it was overcome through peace. Period. Yes. It's happened. And Birmingham is the symbol. And look to what happened here. The fear, don't over-exaggerate the fear, because when you over-exaggerate the fear, you become violent, you become emotional. You want to lash out at people, and you have to refrain from doing those things.
We need love. We need emotion, but the emotion needs to be love.
Exactly.
And like you were saying, Manny, for so long, all of us minorities have been pitted against each other, man. Look inside the prisons, and you'll see it right away. And then they institutionalize us there, and then it comes out into the neighborhoods, L.A., San Diego. It's apparent. It's blatant. Over here in Birmingham, it's a little different, man. Like I said, they've dealt a little better with it out here because they were in the heart of it back in the 60s. But when we let that play out like that, where we let ourselves be divided, man, that's because we're getting played by the system. We're getting played by the power brokers. We're getting played by the spin doctors. And we're getting played by the government that institutionalizes us and segregates the prisons. The prisons are so segregated, man. You know what I mean? So, these guys are pitting us against each other. All the free-thinking people get thrown into prison. Anybody that doesn't follow unjust laws, anybody that smokes a few joints here or there, they throw them in prison. Anybody that trying to make a living outside of the normal, government-sanctioned business, whether you're selling, any kind of street pharmaceuticals or whatever you want to call them, those laws that outlaw those things are unjust because they allow pharmacies to sell this crap, and more people die from the pharmaceutical drugs than they die from the legal stuff.
Exactly. That's what I like about the Occupy movement. Occupy movement, you didn't know what color anybody was because it didn't matter until the government wanted to say, okay, we're going to send some spies in there, and that's the ones that are trying to ruin the movement, stuff like that. But Occupy the movement, I saw all types of people. I just, and you know where I stand, Nick, and stuff like that, when it comes to loving our brothers and sisters around the world. I'm sad at what's happening in Palestine and stuff like that. And I really was sad. A city that I thought that was really calm and stuff like that. I had never seen so much hate until I went to this protest in Murrieta, California. These people are actually telling these buses to go somewhere else and stuff like that. That's the reason I think the history of Birmingham would be a good role model for everybody to follow that, that basically that lead. And I thank personally right now the brothers are up there with you guys doing the show with you guys, because I think it's a lot of meaning, because I expected that hate when I went to Arizona to protest down there. Actually, Sheriff Arpaio said, why don't I go? He got to know me real well. He said, you should go back to Mexico. And I was, wow, really? Stuff like that. Arizona was really bad, but I never thought I was going to see it in Murrieta, California.
Back
Never.
to Mexico, really?
But I want to throw this in there. I want to kind of describe to the listeners about how the fear is sold to people. Because we're in Birmingham, Alabama, we have confronted the black-white racial issue so head-on that, the fear, it kind of went away because you saw it, and it's like you realize there's nothing to be scared of. We're all just human beings. So things subsided on that level to a degree. Now, this is where they sell the fear now in Alabama. They say there's a Muslim, and they say, oh, there's a Muslim. Oh, no.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And so they just traded the fear for something else. They traded it for another color and another, religion or whatever.
It's just another scapegoat to make up for the fact that we're being robbed blind by the industrial class.
There was nothing to be scared of.
We're being robbed blind by the ruling class, just like we've been being robbed blind by the ruling class since the Babylonian times, or all the way back, right? And they always got to have a scapegoat. So now, out here, everyone black and white, they all get along for the most part. But now they're like, oh, but the Muslims now are the bad guys, and the Mexicans aren't that great either, but the Muslims are the real bad problem. That's what they're trying to do now. But all it is a
fear. They sell fear.
It's more fear. It's a scapegoat to distract everybody from the real problem.
The white people in Birmingham realized that they sold fear because people with black skin were supposed to scare them. They realized there was nothing to be scared of, and they were just like them. But now they got Muslims, and they're scared to death. It's the same thing.
You're right.
So, we got to keep in mind, man, all these fools that are in charge, the ruling class, whatever you want to call them, 1%ers, these guys, we're like horses, and they're just holding this carrot in front of our faces, right? Just keep us running straight. And this carrot is fear. Hey, here's the fear, and then here's how we're going to keep you safe. You just got to keep it. You got to keep doing what we tell you, right?
Patriot.
Yeah, and they call that patriotism. Hey, you want to be patriot? You want to be patriotic? Well, we got to keep segregation going in the schools back in the '60s, right? You want to be patriotic? Well, you got to be against immigration. You got to build up that big wall. You want to be patriotic? Well, we can't allow Muslims in this country.
And you know what? Here's the problem too. Is they tie, especially here in the South and in Birmingham, Alabama, there's a lot of people that are religious and go to church. I don't have a problem with that. This is what I do have a problem with. They tie their religion and their country together. Because you know what? The irony is they say God created the world. And then they think God somehow specified that America was better than everyone else. I have a friend of mine up in Tennessee right now that just had to leave his church because they wanted to put an American flag in the church. And he said that was idolatry because you're here to worship God. Why are you here you shouldn't worship a country? And that's what everything is turned into. It's idolatry that the propagandists have put forward this narrative that your country is the exact same thing as your religion, and it's so intertwined together that you're so emotional. You see an American flag and you think Jesus.
But can you go back and just think about in like Desert Storm, I think it was like 92, when we first bombed Iraq, and they put it on television. In America,
infrared, yep.
We sat there and cheered it on, right? And it was a feeling.
Yeah.
Like you were sitting there, literally, I was like probably 12 years old back then. I was looking at TV, and I can recall just sitting there saying, God damn, America. Right? But, it's like innocent people.
I got a question for you guys, because I'm really kind of still boggling over it up to these years, is why we have, of all things, why do we have an embargo against, the only country we have an embargo against is a small little place like Cuba.
All that is political, and that is pride, and I'll tell you what it is. They have an embargo against Cuba because of pride. I think that because of the relations that it really, I think, has to go back to Castro. Me personally thinks this is that they tried to kill Castro 8,000 times, and the United States of America doesn't want to admit that Fidel Castro, as horrible as he has been to the people in that country he lives in, he's not stupid. And he has survived every assassination attack. And it's all propaganda, and so it's pride.
You have to say he let Beyonce and Jay-Z come to the country.
And you know what? That's why I don't like him. But that's a different story altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we're on the right track here, though, with
with everything that's going on, man. They got us fooled with this crap on TV, and that is exactly why things are changing, man. That is why I come here to Birmingham, and I'm blown away by the amount of good things that are actually going on in this city. From what I thought of Birmingham, and I just got done going to Texas, and what I thought of these two places was that these are shitholes. You know, a bunch of idiots, a bunch of racists, a bunch of horrible things happening, but I'll tell you what. The young people are taking over, dude, and the young people are done with this propaganda. They're not watching this shit on TV no more. They're on the internet. They're reading the anti-media. They're on Reddit. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. They're reading the Free Thought Project. They're figuring things out. They're figuring out this control mechanism that they've been using against us for so long, which is the mass media, whatever you want to call it. Back in the day, it was newspapers. Then it was a shit on TV and radio. But now it's the internet, and they can't control the internet. And that's why it's so important that, A, we move quickly, because obviously they're trying to figure out a way to control the internet. So, 1, we got to move quickly. 2, we got to fight for our rights online and in person in every way that we can. 3, I think we really got to build community, man. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because from what I saw today in the Civil Rights Museum, a lot of this activism that was going on back in the 50s and the 60s, it was coming out of the churches down here. You know, the churches were the places where all the organizing was taking place, because these people had spiritual connections. They had personal relationships with one another. They cared about each other. They all went to the same church. They cared about each other. Now, I know church is a thing of the past. I'm not a fan of churches or religion or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that we need to build community, man.
That's what church was, though.
We can build ideas similar to churches without the whole religion thing, but just a place where people can come and make community and can come together and trade goods, meet up, have Bitcoin meetups, teach people how to brew beer, teach people how to grow marijuana, whatever it is that we want to do, meet up and just have a good time or whatever. We need community to come together as little bubbles all around the country, and each bubble can connect and the way I like to look at it is like a bunch of bubbles together creates foam, and this foam can go across the whole country and across the whole globe. And the main thing that we need to do is make freedom a personal thing, and freedom a friendship thing, and a emotional thing to all of us. We all need to value freedom with love. We need to love freedom and love each other, man. And this is how we beat these guys. We counter all their fear-mongering. We counter their mass media. The mass media is already doomed. They're already done. CNN is almost bankrupt. New York Times, bankrupt. Boston Globe, done.
Speaking of Birmingham, they had
Fox News, done. All these guys are
News literally had to go to printing their paper 3 times a week because the mass media is finished.
Exactly.
Yeah. In 2006, the Birmingham News built a building, a new construction. They had to just move out and go to like a substation or something like that.
And here's the thing. The same people on the New Orleans paper, and they had to do the same thing.
Yeah, dude. The media, we're already winning on that angle. Where we're not winning yet is community. That's where we need to hit hard and focus. I think Ferguson is winning. I think they're making it happen in Ferguson right now. We're gonna find out soon. But they've been at it for 3 months, every single day in Ferguson, and it's happening.
Down in Mexico, provocateur, get rid of them.
Down in Mexico, it's happening to the point where it's so strong that these guys are forming self-defense communities, self-defense organizations. They're kicking the government and the drug dealers out. They're throwing them out, and they're saying, "Screw you guys, we're doing our own thing."
The people are
They're
coming.
kicking them all the way out, dude.
The people are coming.
Imagine a state like imagine Southern California is saying, "You know what? All of the government is gone. You're all out. You all suck. All of the cops, you're all done. You're gone. All of you, all the gangs, you're gone. We don't need none of you guys. You're not allowed back in. We're going to take care of ourselves." We need to start. We're winning in the media. We need to apply some similar tactics. We need to think back at what Martin Luther King did. We need to think back at what the Civil Rights Movement, where they had their successes. And we need to invoke all of that stuff together. We need to build communities. We need to build media. We need to build personal connections like the Houston Freethinkers are doing. And like Free Birmingham is getting ready to do. And Free Ferguson. And
Free
all
Ferguson.
This stuff.
Hashtag Free Ferguson.
Yeah.
Hashtag Free Ferguson. Hashtag Free Ferguson.
Catch you guys later. Thanks, man.
Have a good night, guys.
Yo, here we go through the